Recently, KARD is the hot gossip, burning up the scene again, sadly not for a sexy hit, but for a tiny, careless move that tragically spiraled into a massive, jaw-dropping, and totally explosive scandal. The fire sparked when KARD's famous icon liked and shared a TikTok video celebrating their rare power as a co-ed act in a stiff industry that has forever forced male and female stars into totally separate, lonely lanes. Alone, it seemed sweet, maybe even necessary, but buried deep in that clip was a toxic line that flipped the script, shockingly stating KARD's tracks were infinitely better than the Rookie Squad all-day project. The second he clicked share, assumptions exploded. The scene stopped praising KARD and started blasting BM for throwing bitter shade at a group that is actually a decade his junior. Haters argued that a star with his experience should know better than to compare himself to rookies who were barely starting out. Others went further, framing the vibe as jealousy, suggesting BM was bitter over how All Day Project achieved the domestic recognition and visibility that KARD never fully received in Korea. As the backlash grew louder, the situation revealed something deeper than a simple misunderstanding. It exposed years of frustration from fans who feel KARD has been ignored, underpromoted, and quietly pushed to the side despite their huge global success. When BM later swore he hadn't even read the caption and only shared the video out of pride for his group, the damage had already been done forever. What followed wasn't just an apology, but a fierce debate about respect hierarchy and how brutally unforgiving the K-pop industry can be, especially to artists who don't fit the standard rigid old mold. If this one moment could rip open so many old scars, then the real question becomes clear. How did KARD end up here in the first place, and why does their story still ignite so much raw debate today? If you want to dig into the roots of this scandal and the industry forces behind it, make sure to subscribe, stay tuned, and keep watching as we go deeper into KARD's wild journey. To truly grasp why KARD's existence still feels controversial today, you have to rewind the clock to a totally different era of K-pop. Back in the 1990 seconds, when the industry was still experimenting with its vibe, co-ed groups were not odd at all. In fact, they were literally everywhere. Icons like Rura Tutu and Cool ruled the charts, mixing male and female voices in ways that felt sexy and natural. Back then, crowds craved catchy beats and fun vibes more than the carefully crafted plastic idol fantasies we see now. As the late 90 seconds melted into the early 2000s, co-ed groups continued to slay. Groups like Coed and Sharp scored massive hits and became household names, proving that mixed-gender lineups could succeed both commercially and culturally. Their fame was so intense that the industry even honored the category formally with awards specifically dedicated to mixed groups. For a moment, it seemed like co-ed acts were a permanent pillar of K-pop's bright future. But everything changed as the industry became more systematic. The 2000s marked the rise of strictly controlled idol branding, where fantasy image and emotional attachment became key to success. Hot boy bands like TVXQ, Super Junior, and Big Bang exploded in popularity, while girl groups like Girls' Generation and Wonder Girls defined a new standard. Fans increasingly preferred clearly separated gender groups, where idols could be marketed as idealized partners rather than collaborators. Co-ed groups didn't vanish, but they slowly faded into the dark background. A few acts survived, and collabs between male and female idols occasionally broke through, but full co-ed groups struggled to gain any real traction. By the time the late 2000s hit, mixed-gender groups were no longer seen as cool. They were seen as risky, outdated, and nearly impossible to sell. This long decline set the stage for why KARD's debut years later would feel like a direct challenge to everything modern K-pop had become. By the time DSP Media announced KARD at the end of 2016, the odds were tragically stacked against them. A co-ed group debuting in an era dominated by tight single-gender idols felt almost reckless. Many fans and watchers immediately questioned the move, interpreting it as either a desperate gamble or a tone-deaf act that ignored years of market trends. Some dismissed KARD before they even dropped a beat, convinced that history would repeat itself and the group would quietly fade away like so many co-ed acts before them. Instead, KARD did something unexpected. Rather than debuting traditionally, they rolled out a series of project singles that slowly built momentum. When their first release dropped, it turned heads. The group's sound felt fresh yet accessible, blending tropical house, hip-hop, and pop in a way that stood apart from the polished formulas dominating the charts. Almost overnight, international fans latched onto KARD, intrigued by both their music and their unconventional lineup. Industry recognition followed quickly. Global platforms praised KARD as one of the most promising new acts, pointing out that their mixed gender dynamic alone generated curiosity and buzz. Each subsequent release performed even better, climbing international charts and reinforcing the idea that KARD had cracked a code no one else could. Tours across North and South America sold out, and it looked like the group had found a shortcut around the barriers that once killed coed groups. But beneath the surface, a disconnect was forming. While international audiences embraced KARD enthusiastically, Korean fans remained cautious and distant. The excitement overseas created the illusion of a full breakthrough, yet domestically the group still struggled to secure the recognition that defines long-term success in K-pop. What appeared to be a triumphant rise was actually the beginning of a divide that would shape KARD's entire career. When KARD officially debuted, it seemed like everything was finally aligning. Their early momentum carried over, international charts responded positively, and tours continued to sell out overseas. From the outside, KARD looked like a success story, a group that had managed to bypass the traditional gatekeepers of K-pop by building a loyal global audience first. But inside Korea, the picture looked very different. Music show wins never came mainstream, recognition remained limited, and the group struggled to establish a strong domestic fan base. This growing gap between global popularity and local indifference became impossible to ignore. Some observers pointed to deep-rooted discomfort with coed groups, arguing that Korean fans still viewed mixed-gender idols through a lens of dating rumors and taboo. KARD's very existence challenged the fantasy-driven marketing that had become essential to idol culture, where fans are encouraged to see idols as emotionally exclusive. For many, KARD simply didn't fit the illusion. Others blamed management decisions. From early on, KARD was pushed heavily toward international markets, touring constantly and prioritizing overseas exposure. While this strategy built a strong global foundation, it left little room to nurture a Korean audience that values consistent domestic promotion. Over time, the cycle reinforced itself. International fans demanded more tours, Korean interest faded further, and the divide widened. When the pandemic halted global touring, the cracks became impossible to hide. With limited domestic support and no overseas stages to rely on, KARD's momentum slowed. Shifting musical trends and changes in concept only intensified the struggle. What once felt like a bold alternative path now looked like a trap, leaving the group caught between two worlds with no clear way forward. By the time a new coed group like All Day Project entered the scene, the unresolved tension surrounding KARD resurfaced almost instantly. Unlike KARD, this rookie group achieved domestic success at a speed that felt almost unreal, securing major attention and a music show win within days of debut. For longtime KARD fans, the comparison was painful. It highlighted everything KARD never received despite years of effort, innovation, and international success. The industry that once treated coed groups as a liability now seemed ready to embrace the concept again, but only after KARD had already paid the price. This contrast reignited long-standing debates about fairness, privilege, and timing in K-pop. Some fans argued that All Day Project benefited from stronger industry backing, influential connections, and a system that had finally adjusted to the idea of mixed-gender groups. Others insisted that KARD simply debuted at the worst possible moment, when coed acts were still considered commercially dangerous and emotionally incompatible with idol culture. What once felt like rejection was now reframed as groundwork, with many claiming that KARD quietly reopened doors others are now able to walk through with far less resistance. As these discussions spread, a wave of rediscovery followed. New listeners began revisiting KARD's discography, praising the group's consistency, bold musical identity, and refusal to conform to industry expectations. Those quirks that kept them down at home, now they scream real and iconic. But let's be real, K-pop glory never comes when you're starving for it. In this cruel game, perfect timing beats pure talent, raw impact, or a killer vision every single time, hun. KARD's wild ride is a massive red flag. Being new doesn't pay bills instantly. In a scene obsessed with looks and viral hits, the daredevils gambling everything usually stay lonely, waiting for love that might never come. It is the tragic cost of being first. It unveils a dark secret leaders get forgotten while vultures feast on the cash from the trails they blazed first. Will this fresh gaze spark a burning comeback for KARD? Who knows, darling? But one thing is crystal clear, their wild history simply won't die out. Craving more dirt on the brutal fights and shady games beneath K-pop's shiny mask? Then smash that subscribe button. Love this clip? Drop your hottest takes below and stick around. We are peeling back every layer in the next expose.